Hello, David here, and the project for today is repairing a Dunhill Rollagas lighter. Look how fancy that's packaged. Comes with an instruction sheet in about 20 different languages. Got this fancy sock for holding the lighter. Look at the beauty of this lighter. Gold plated. This was my dad's. He used to smoke. I don't smoke, but I thought I'd get it going, and I filled it with butane on the bottom, and it all leaked out through the filler valve. A lot of carbon in there. I think I'm going to wash it out off camera with some alcohol and a toothbrush. Once you open the top, the gas starts flowing, and it's got this little suppressor in the cap. Caps off the gas. Let's see if it sparks. Sparks just fine. You can change the flint by pushing back on this slide. That part pivots out to change the flint. Dunhill makes their own flints. They're slightly larger in diameter than the Ronson flints, but my understanding is that a Ronson flint will work. So I ordered a parts kit on eBay. This services 2 lighters. It's from Vintage Dunhill Rollagas Collectors. Not a sponsor, but it comes with O-rings, safety pin, felt pad, a washer, a little fancy toothpick for club sandwiches, and instructions. I guess this is a Rollagas Model 70. Pretty detailed instructions. 2 pages of instructions. And here's the parts list. The parts diagram with the parts list on the back. Since there's some really small parts in here, I'm going to work in the lasagna pan so I don't lose any parts. I'm going to turn the lighter upside down and turn out the gas control valve with a tiny screwdriver. See if the needle valve comes out. Whoa, see that tiny spring there? Probably didn't see that. That tiny spring at the end of the pin. Spring you cannot lose. Get that needle valve out of there. Sometimes you got to play with this flame adjustment to let that needle valve come out. This is the other end of the needle valve right there. And it's very fragile. I'm going to push on it with that wooden toothpick. I don't want to use metal. That thing bends very easily. Maybe I turned this valve the wrong way. Try turning it up. Probably stuck with carbon. I'm going to put some WD-40 down this hole and let it sit for a while. On the gas control valve, a little piece of felt in there. That's coming out. Going to use a pin to take that out. Yeah, look how tiny that is. Barely see it. The amount of gas that flows into the lighter is controlled by the size of that felt. So the felt replacement, which you could see right here, is too large. It's supposed to be cut. Recommendation was to cut it in half. And I'm going to take this O-ring off with the pin without stabbing myself. I think it's really brittle. I don't know how old this thing is. Yow! Stab myself. Doggone it. Okay, I managed to cut it. It's breaking up. Let's soak this thing in some alcohol. Let that sit for a while. Still doesn't want to budge. Let it sit for a while longer. Okay, the easiest way to get the needle valve out is to turn the flame adjustment clockwise until it stops. The needle valve depresses a little bit, but at some point it stops and doesn't want to go any further. I think I should put some WD-40 on the top half. I let this thing soak for 2 days, and it was still really hard to get out. There it goes. Took a lot of effort. Check this out. See this little washer here? Some of these needle valves don't have washers. Some have one, some have two. And the more washers you have on there, the smaller the flame will be. So if you find you have a flame that's too large and you can't adjust it down, you might have to add 1 or 2 more washers on here. Going to take that off, put it with that little spring over there. This O-ring has to be replaced as well. Let's get that off of there. Well, it broke off. Well, let's soak that thing. I don't know if I want to soak it in alcohol or acetone. I think acetone would be better. Okay, I had these items soaking in alcohol overnight. I did not soak them in acetone. But when this needle valve was stuck in the body of the lighter, I did put about 6 or 7 drops of acetone in here and let that sit overnight. That seemed to help. The orifices are so tiny on this needle valve, I'm going to blow it out with some compressed air along with this piece. Our next step is to put the O-ring on the needle valve, and the instructions are to put some silicone grease on the needle valve, or on the groove where the O-ring resides. And I already snagged an O-ring from the parts bag. This thing's really tiny. Silicone on the O-ring. For the spring, kit came with a new spring and a little bag all its own. Caution, number 31 spring, easy to lose. I don't know why this is a kit for 2 repairs, but they only give you 1 spring. Of course, I have the old spring. It's easy to lose and it's hard to see. Okay, where it's supposed to go. Now to get the needle valve back in its hole, there's a loose plastic collar in there and you got to make sure it doesn't fall out of place. So you have to look through, make sure you have daylight. I'll show you what it's going to look like. They say to wrap the lighter on the flame control side. There, see that? That works. And they also say to open the valve fully, clockwise, and then back off 1 turn. This thing is turning forever. Okay, that's about 1 turn. Look in there again. I think it's clear. Stick that in. Ah, good. Now this part. This gets an O-ring too. Put some grease on there. I made a mistake. Got to put that washer on the needle valve. Put a little silicone on that to hold that in place. The filter is supposed to be cut in half. Put some butane in there and see if it holds. Make sure you have a tip that fits the lighter. Try this one. I'm going to take this outside. I don't want to burn the house down. Nothing. And when you open the cap, you're supposed to hear gas rushing out of the nozzle. And I've got the valve open all the way. I've got this bottom valve loose. I suspect this needle valve is clogged. I'm going to take it out and soak it in acetone. After soaking the needle valve, it was still plugged. I was going to give up, and I decided to look on the internet for help. I also took a strand of copper wire from here and tried to poke it in there, but this copper is too soft, and that didn't help either. But I found on Facebook, there's a Facebook group called Vintage Dunhill Rollagas Collectors. And I sent a message, and I got a prompt reply from one of the moderators there, and told me this thing comes apart. And the way to take it apart... Anyway, the way this works is when you close the cap, there's a snuffer. And the snuffer pushes down on this, and there's a little neoprene disc on the bottom that stops the flow of gas. And he said if you ever close the cover and the gas is still leaking, it's probably because the neoprene in here is probably deteriorated. And he also said that soaking this in acetone might have ruined my neoprene disc. So he suggested pulling this apart, and then you can make a disc from an O-ring by slicing it with a razor blade, just making your own disc. So he said to put a fork through here, the channel that the O-ring resides in, and he said not to just use any fork, to use a fork that's been stamped. So I have a fork that was stamped. That's because the tines will be square and not round. And he said to just run the tines in the groove that the O-ring resides. Let's see if I can fit that in there. Then he said just rock on this. Boy, I don't know. This thing just doesn't look strong enough. I'm afraid of bending the needle valve. I think this thing's going to break. And there's a real tiny spring in there, so you have to be careful not to lose that. And he said just shake it. Not to use anything metal on here because it's going to destroy the brass. So you can't use pliers. Well, I wonder if this is the part that's supposed to pull off. Ah, I got it. Don't see a spring. Feels hard in there. I don't feel anything soft. Ah, I see the spring. There's a spring right there. It's not so tiny. Gotta save that. Where shall I put that? Okay, I'm gonna put it on this pick with the O-ring. Man, this stuff is tiny. Funny thing is, there are no blockages in here. You can't see it, but there is daylight coming through the other side here. I could blow on it. That also answers the question of whether this is hollow. This is not hollow. This needle valve is solid. And the location of the neoprene pad, at first I thought it might be in here, but no. It can't be, because the valve opens, or the valve closes shut when the snuffer pad pushes down here. So that would not cause a blockage here. The only blockage that would be in this cap that has a groove for the O-ring. Got to block it here. And when I scrape the bottom of here, I do not feel anything soft. Feels like I'm scraping metal. So I will cut a pad and push it in there. Okay, I got my dental pick. I'm scraping this thing out to get it clean. I do not feel a neoprene pad in there. I think the acetone got it all. Okay, I'm taking an O-ring from my O-ring box. These are not neoprene, they're nitro. I don't know if that's going to make a difference or not, but the cross section fits over the hole.
Okay.
That's not perfectly flat. That's better. Okay, the guy from the collector's forum told me to use super glue to glue it in, but I don't trust my fix. I could come back and glue it later. Something soft here. I don't have any spring action. I think that pad was too thick. Let's try it again. Okay, let's press that on there. I think that's the most I'm going to get it. Got that edge kind of chewed up over there. I hope it fits in the bore. Try it out. Yeah, I think it's going to fit. Some silicone back on there. Washer. Where's that washer? Get a new one. Yeah, got some spring action there. Try to fill it. Ooh, that's cold. Whoa. Too much flowing out. Let me tighten this screw a little. Still a lot. It's going to be a flamethrower. That is a lot. It's leaking too. Look at it spray. Good Lord. Do I need to add a washer? Whoa. Way too much. Forgot to put the spring in. I don't think that's causing the problem of the high flame. Put another spacer in there. Okay, I've got the two washers on the needle valve. I got the spring behind the needle valve. Let's turn this in. Got that turned in. I think this flame is still too high. I got this turned down as much as it'll go. don't know what to do with this thing. I don't feel safe using it. I don't want to go in and put another seat inside the needle valve. I wonder if that seat maybe wasn't thick enough. Anyway, I don't think I'm going to be using this thing a lot. No, it's out of butane. Turn it up. Don't get much out of a charge. Whoa! That was up all the way. I think I'm within the range. Whoa! Gosh, it's gonna singe all the hair on me. Now it's leaking. Look, I just don't trust this thing. I'm going back to my electric lighter. Look at my YouTube on that. That was a lot safer than this thing. I think this thing is just for hipsters. That's what I'm thinking. Anyway, I want to thank you guys and gals for watching. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more great videos from David GPO. It sure helps out my algorithms. Bye now.